thing. We need to learn how to clean properly, responsibly, to make sure that we're doing it. And consumers a lot of times don't want to hear about how to do it right. They don't want to pay the extra cost. But we as experts and professionals in the industry need to advise them with the best information available, let them make a decision. And then you as a company need to make a decision if you want to do the job, not following the standard of care maybe that you've created yourself for your own company.
So Larry, I don't want to offend anybody, and I know this is going to go on our national television channel, but I say it in class very openly, and I really believe this is true. When you're in business and you say you're starting a business, you've got to decide right up front, am I going to be a Walmart or am I going to be a Macy's? I'm going to be in the marketplace only looking for the best price I can get, or am I going to actually do it right? And it doesn't really matter so much about the cost. Obviously, you want to be reasonable about it. But the point is that doing it right has to take precedence over doing it cheap. And you've got to make those kinds of decisions. And so I think customers appreciate that, because now they're looking for somebody who is following the standards, following the guidelines, following the professional practices, and they know for sure that they're going to get a job done well. I think that's so important, and a lot of guys don't even think about that these days.
When from a liability standpoint, protecting your own company, if you're not following the standard of care, there is no defense.
That's right.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, that's right. It's what we call shifting the liability. I think, again, in our classes, when I was a contractor in the construction industry, I would hire a subcontractor. I made sure he had a certificate of insurance for his workers' comp. And why did I do that? It's because I didn't want to pay the workers' comp if his employee got hurt. Right. And so the point is I shifted the liability from me to him. And that's exactly what the standard of care and the best practices, professional practices, that's exactly what it does. If you do it the way it's supposed to be done, you're shifting the liability away from you. You're no longer a cowboy. You're shifting the liability away from you to the person who's actually written the guideline.
There's a very simple statement that quantifies or qualifies, whichever way you want to place it into this, to make that true. And it's to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do. Not because it's the cheapest or I can charge the most for this. It's the right way to do it.
Well, and there's one other variable that's really challenging for every contractor out there. If there's insurance coverage, what will the insurance coverage cover and not cover? And so now the insurance company is trying to shift the liability to your company by not doing it the right way.
Yeah, that's right.
Now you need to make a business decision. Am I going to take that on? Obviously, we want the work. At the same time, we don't want the risk.
And if the job goes south, whose license is going to be bothered, yours or the insurance carrier? So you're exactly right. You got to be in charge of the job.
Yeah, no question about it. Well, these are all amazing topics that we talk about at the show, and we need to go and delve deeper into it also. And one of the things that we're going to do at the show is we're bringing in another relationship with RIA, and we've never worked with them before. We're excited about that. But again, what we're looking for is the expertise and level of collaboration through the whole industry. I mean, if Normie and RIA and IICRC and the experience are standing together on issues, that is a big one. There's no question about it. And now we're starting to work with NADCA also.
Well, Larry, with that, I mean, without giving away secrets and some of the surprises that you always have for us.
There's secrets? Wow.
How is Norma going to be participating in the Fort Lauderdale show? The Las Vegas show is too far off to talk about. But what specifically do you vision, or are you able to talk about Normie and the show coming up?
Well, I asked Doug to specifically take a track on the second day and do all hands on in the classroom. So, the experience name is not a mistake. It's on purpose. We want people to experience hands-on. That learning is so valuable. And Normie has done such a great job of transferring that information to our participants. So that's why we have standing room only in your room, because you're doing it right. And we
Thank
really
you.
appreciate that. And then
Thank
we've also asked if you would hold a class afterwards, and I'm not quite sure what class you're going to hold. So let's jump in here also.
Yeah, I'll talk about that because I think it's interesting because the hands-on training is kind of going to lead toward that class. So one of the things that we've seen that's a little bit of a vacuum in the industry has been the remediator or the restoration contractor understanding how to evaluate the work that he's doing. And so we put together a certification. It's called Certified Mold Assessment Technician, CMAT. That's a one-day class. It does come with a certification once they take the exam. But the point is that it's teaching restoration contractors how to do 3 different types of assessments. Because oftentimes a remediator or a restoration contractor shows up on site and there's no third-party assessor, nowhere near. And so what that restoration contractor needs to do, or remediator needs to do, is he needs to create a baseline, establish a baseline for the level of contamination that's there. So we're going to talk about how to do that and to assess that environment. Then once he starts the project, he really needs to make sure that he's making progress toward the end point, whatever his goal is, the PRV. He needs to do interim inspections and interim assessments. And that might be something as simple, Larry, you've done this. It might be something as simple as putting a particulate counter inside the containment to find out that you're actually making progress and lowering the particulate counts. It might involve a monitoring program or manometer, some way of making sure that you're under containment and that you're under negative pressure. So that interim inspection process is so important. That's number 2. And then the third time that he's going to be doing an assessment is what we would call a PRE, post-remediation evaluation, in preparation for the third-party assessor. Because oftentimes they might not be an assessor on the front end, but the homeowner or the insurance carrier wants some sort of third-party post-remediation verification. And so if you're a remediation contractor, restoration contractor, you've been under containment, you want to make sure that the job is correctly done, and you want to pass that PRV, maybe you need to do a PRE, post-remediation evaluation, to make sure that all the surfaces are clean, the air is clean, and so forth, before you call that guy in to do the PRV. Because when he comes in, if it's dirty, he's going to leave and charge you another $500 to come back a second time. So the point is that we believe that restoration contractors and remediators need to know how to do the baseline, the interim, the post-remediation evaluation, and that's what that certified mold assessment technician training is all about. And that's the training that we're going to be offering at the end of the experience.
That certainly makes a lot of sense to me. And, when we were writing the 520, we were up against that challenge of what if there is not an environmental expert in the area? How do you do the post testing or pre-testing? And we came up with something similar in language. So I'm glad that you're following up on that. It is good, though, to have an outside testing firm finish the job.
Absolutely.
Because it reduces, again, your risk. They're saying it's done. Thank you. Now we're, saying this guy who's an expert saying we did a good job. That's critical to closing the file.
Well, and having that, that's the whole reason the industry is built the way it is, with 2 professions, the assessor, the IEP, and the remediator, because they don't want that conflict of interest. Right. And so understanding how that assessor is going to do his job just makes the remediation project easier. And I think it's makes it easier to evaluate whether the job's been done correctly or not. So yeah, that's a fun class to teach.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's critically important that you're doing that type of evaluation as you're doing your job every day. And you'll learn a lot also about, having containment and having in and out good protocols and a variety of things. Because that's so critical to the success of the job. So I'm really excited to see that class coming.
Yeah, it's going to be cool. Looking forward to it.
Hey, can I just, I want to confirm the dates. I believe we're talking about May 8, 9, and 10 for the experience.
That is
And the
correct.
11th, Doug, is that correct for the class?
That's correct. The 11th will be the class, the CMAT class.
Now, our
All right.
hotel also, we have hotel rooms 3 days before and 3 days after. And you're coming to Fort Lauderdale in May, you might as well stay and enjoy the beach. Right outside the hotel door, you're going to notice there's water taxis. They can take you to any beach you want to go to in the region, which is fabulous. And there's hundreds of restaurants. I walked to the restaurant area last time I was there, and I mean, I couldn't make up my mind which one I wanted to go to. There were so many of them. So they're all right across the street from the beach. And of course, there's so much to do in Florida. It's going to be a great opportunity just to go relax.
Absolutely.
So if I was asking you to mention to the people watching this that you think they'd enjoy themselves there, I mean, is that a fair statement? I mean, you're
Yeah.
giving a little bit of what's going on. Is there any more detail you can give us about the hotel or the
Sure.
things that are going to happen?
You bet. So we always do cocktail receptions back at the hotel after one of the days. We're going to do a little bit of a pool party kind of thing, just getting together informally. We will have a big reception on the first night right there at the convention center. And so it's a great opportunity to network and meet hundreds and hundreds of other people in the cleaning and restoration remediation industry. But, you know, we are all there also to relax. And, you know, when you own a business or you're managing a business, it's really critical for you to get away and take a step back and look at what you're doing as a company and then see what's happening in the industry. The one great thing that I learned going to conventions in my career when I was running a cleaning and restoration remediation company was that when I would go to these conferences, I would learn the latest techniques, the latest innovations and new ideas, and I'd bring them back and put them right into my company as quickly as I could, because we were leading the field all the time. And all of our competitors were like, what the heck are they doing now? And trying to figure out how we're doing it, why we're doing it. And they'd actually come to us to learn how to do it. And that helped us lead the field in our area, which also allowed us to charge a little bit more. But that was my own goals and the way that I ran my business. Education to me is paramount in running a successful business. It was mandatory in our company to be certified and to attend classes. And it really made a big difference. And, you know, ultimately, if you're larger than a MAPA operation, you have several people out on location, who is it that the consumer's talking to? They're talking to one of your technicians who needs to be very educated about the standard of care in the industry and understand all of your own techniques so they can explain it clearly to your customer. I can tell you, we were doing a large commercial job in downtown Denver, big job, and I wasn't there. And the CEO of the company comes out, and we're restoring 100,000 plus square feet. And he starts asking difficult questions. And my lead technician stood there and answered all of his questions and was able to cite information from S500, 520, and what he learned in his classes about how we're doing our processes, how the drying is taking place, how we're always monitoring to make sure we're doing things correctly. I'm not there. They've got to be able to stand up on their 2 feet and answer the questions in the right way and feel comfortable enough to be able to do that. That's really critical.
It is, Larry, and that's one of the things we are going to talk about in our class, and not only the CMAT class, but also from our booth, because we got a nice sized booth there in the exhibition hall as well. And that's our new firm membership. We've got a program now where companies can participate in being able to train their guys in a certified mold worker program, and they can train them absolutely free online. And those guys get trained in exactly the same way as a remediation contractor would get trained, just the modules that are appropriate for them, because there's some of the higher level business models and law models that they don't necessarily need. But the point is that this firm membership, which is what we have developed, I think is going to really change the industry for these guys, because now they've got an in-house training program that they can send their guys to anytime they want, 1 in the morning if they want to, and keep them educated. Because you're exactly right. The guy in the field, the technician that's talking to the client, better be talking the same language as the sales guy, and the same language as the person who answers the phone, and the same language as the person who's licensed. And I think that that's a big step in the right direction.
Absolutely. I agree with you 100%.
I want to throw out something about the experience show. And I mean, what it means to me going to the experience, and I'm just going to give it out as very short little statements. And if you guys want to add on, please, or correct me on this. When I think of the experience, it's hands-on learning. And I got to look at my list: networking, learning about new products, rock concerts, had to throw that one in there, food, beaches, and fun. What'd I miss?
No, the rock concerts are really critically important.
Absolutely.
I'll tell you, one of the things that I think is one of the most important things to me is the networking. I have made such great relationships, and thank you, Larry, for doing that. You've been the one that's been the catalyst in most cases. You'll say, "Hey, come here, I want you to meet somebody," or you'll bring somebody to us. "Hey, you guys need to get together. You think the same way." And I'll tell you what, that networking for me, the opportunity to be among some of the industry leaders and to be able to sit down with them and have a cup of coffee and talk about what they're doing with their business. I don't know how in the world you could ever exchange that, because, you know, some of them live in New England, some of them live in California, some of them I would never see if we didn't get together at one of these events. So to me, that's one of the biggest advantages of this whole process.
Well, and I'll tell you that we have left specific time this show so that we could have good networking time. And if you come to the show, you need to take advantage of the people that are there. You need to meet as many people as you can. Go out to dinner with a bunch of them. Go into the bar or pool or wherever they're hanging out and just meet people. I mean, one of the things that made us successful as a company is sometimes we would get jobs that were too big for us. And I could call my competitors locally or wherever they were and say, "Hey guys, I've got this job. Will you come help me?" And here they come. And we were able to process jobs much larger than our capability because of those relationships that we made while we were out at these type of shows.
So I'm going to focus on another word, Lance: food. I wouldn't say I was exactly a foodie, but since I live in Louisiana, I've sort of kind of become one. And I mentioned earlier about these conferences that have stale food. I'll tell you, Larry does a great job of putting together an event, and the food is usually fantastic. And I know people aren't going to come to the event just for the food, but they won't have to leave because of it either.
Now that's
Well, I don't know about not coming for the food, but I've kind of enjoyed going there for it.
You know, I'll tell you something funny. There is the last day of our show is the day that's the most challenging to keep people there. And so I always put some of the strongest programming on the last day. You got to be there. But then in the trade show hall, I feed everybody lunch. I want them to stay. Well, the first year we did it, my wife's looking at me like, "You're doing what?" And she gave me this budget I was like not able to achieve. So I served hot dogs. I got to tell you what, man, the guys were so freaking excited about it. But, you know, all the condiments and stuff, these hot dogs were about this high, you know, and I'm like, "What are you guys eating?" But anyway, we don't do hot dogs anymore.
That's funny.
Hey, real quick, if somebody wanted to find out more information about the experience coming up, where do they go to look?
experiencetheevents.com. We have a brand new website we just launched. We're getting better and better at it, and a lot of new information in there. We'll be adding to it continually. I'm working on the program right now, and in the next 2.5 weeks, the program will be published. It's coming along really well. A lot of new presenters on the program, a lot of new energy, and there is some exciting new advances on the program we all want to pay attention to.
And I want to tell you as well, Lance, that we're working on a deal. So we're gonna have some special offers for the Normie members. So if you're a Normie member or you want to become a Normie member, we've got some special things we're going to be doing for you. And so that's going to be a little added benefit for those folks.
Well, I appreciate the time both of you spent here, and just last few minutes. I mean, Larry, is there anything you'd like to say to sum up what we've talked about, or just sum up what's coming up at the experience?
Yeah, we're very excited about our new relationship with BNP Media and the R&R magazine. And I think it's going to enhance a lot of our relationships with our partners as well. It's giving them new opportunities to get out more information. And that's really our goal, is education and information at the experience. I can tell you that going to the beach is always a wonderful time, and being down by the water is always one of my favorite times. But, you know, we were in Clearwater Beach for, I think, 16 years. And of course, many people still scream at us for leaving there, but we outgrew the hotel many times over and finally just had to make the move. And, you know, moving to Charleston and Cincinnati, we had fantastic shows. We met so many new people. It was really wonderful. So now going back to Fort Lauderdale, a big East Coast city with a lot of population and a wonderful atmosphere for doing a show. We're very excited about that. And I'm already starting to work on our show in Las Vegas. Again, we're going to be right back at Caesars Forum Conference Center, and we're going to be staying at 2 or 3 different hotels this time. We've added in Caesars Hotel across the street. So many people wanted to stay there. We listened, and we've added that to our room block. So there'll be a lot of great things going on there. But we're going to build a big house in the trade show hall. We're going to have a huge cleaning area, and we're truly excited about that. We have a very strong partnership with Shaw Industries, who's the largest floor covering manufacturer in the world. And I'll tell you right now, our show the following spring is going to be in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And somebody said to me, why would you go to Chattanooga, Tennessee? I said, not only is it a cool city, but 25 minutes down the road is Shaw Industries. And we have an invitation from Shaw Industries to bring 250 people to Shaw for mill tours. That doesn't happen anymore. And we're thoroughly excited to be there. You know, the more I know about the products I'm working on, the easier it is for me to take care of them properly and understand what it is that I'm doing and how I should do it. And it's really a great opportunity. That's one of the things that I always treasured, was that time going down to wherever I had a chance to tour the mills and see exactly what the products were. So that's kind of what the future looks like. We're very excited about what's coming up, and we're very excited to continue to work with you guys there at Normie, and your members have to be thrilled with the ongoing work that you two continue to do and your whole team continues to do.
Well, thank you, Larry. And just to confirm, there's 249 seats left to go there. Is that how that works?
Yeah.
Doug,
It is.
anything in closing?
Yes, my call to action is this. If you're in the industry, if you're an assessor, if you're a remediator, if you're a restoration contractor, if you're a cleaner, if you're a technician, if you're in this industry, go right now to experiencetheevents.com and register for this event. If you've got any questions at all, of course, we'll be glad to help you. You can call our toll-free number at 877-251-2296. So there'll be operators standing by, as it were, to answer any questions about what we're going to be doing there. And I know Larry's available to answer questions as well, but experiencetheevents.com, go register. You'll really, really be glad you did.
Well, guys, I really appreciate you. I appreciate you guys spending the time here today. Larry, it's always a pleasure talking with you. Doug, thank you for helping out here. And I look forward to doing another one if we could before the experience show.
We would
So
love
as
that.
we get closer, maybe we'll do that. But
You know,
thank you
the other
both.
thing we should talk about next time, Lance, is the way you get jobs nowadays changed so much compared to when I was in business. And we should talk about that and really put that on the table for people to understand all the different areas and options that are out there.
I think that's a great idea, Larry. And thank you so much, but by the way, for being here. It's always fun to talk to you. But I think there's a lot of things we can talk about to help our guys understand how to get that business that's out there, because you're exactly right. It's changing.
It has, absolutely. Thank you all. I hope you have a great year. Can't wait to see you May 8th through 10th in Fort Lauderdale.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Good afternoon, or morning, I guess. Good morning. Yeah, so I'm sure that Mo told you when we created Normie in 2004, one of the interesting things was what we created it primarily for the Louisiana licensing law. And the Louisiana licensing law was the first law to go into effect for mold remediators in the country. So it was the first licensing law, and then what happened in 2005? Katrina. And so we were right there able to help, I think, a lot of people with some of the issues that were of a concern to us. I'm not sure if he talked about the difference between the IICRC and us, but they come from the business more from we're not competitors, by the way. As you know, if you're an IICRC person, you get continuing education credits off of this class. So we work together. We just look at the industry differently. They come from the water restoration side of the business. We come from the building side of the business. And one of the reasons why we do that is not just my background with my licensing, but the main reason we do that is because we try to look at the house and the problem that they're experiencing in terms of a mold issue as a holistic kind of problem, not just fix this problem and everything is great, but think in terms of how we can actually improve their indoor air quality. So when I was moved to New Orleans in 2002, I was actually doing some of the things that you guys are doing now and some of the things that we would recommend that you do in terms of ongoing IAQ management, which is what we call our sanitization protocol. How you create an environment in which mold won't grow. And that was really based on my book, Mold-Free Construction, which you have access to if you have the Normie app. We do have an audio version there, so you can just listen to it. Might put you to sleep, but you can listen to it if you like, because it's on iTunes and on Audible as an audio book. But the sanitization protocol really does improve people's indoor environments, so you have the ability to do that. And I just want to tell you about somebody that I met when I was in New Orleans. I was doing some trade shows, and a radio program, and I got a call from a lady. Her name was Laura DeRocher, and she had 4 children. And her youngest child, who was 8, had some very severe sinus issues. In fact, as she was talking to me, she had, of all 4 of her children, the other 3 had constantly been to the allergist every month. Now think about that for a second. Every month, for years, they had been to this allergy doctor. And she had found some mold up in the kitchen area over one of the cabinets, and she was concerned about how that might be affecting their kids, because she heard me on the radio and she knew that mold was an indoor air quality problem. She'd never really thought about that before. It's mold, how could it affect my children's health? But she was putting 2 and 2 together. She was saying, maybe there is a problem here with this mold that I'm seeing. So I went out there and I did the assessment. It took the sanitization protocol. It was not the amount of mold or the type of mold, or there wasn't a moisture problem that actually was causing the mold. It was actually a HVAC problem with the relative humidity. So we did the sanitization protocol, put it in place just like you see it today, exactly the same protocol. And she was really excited because in about a week she was feeling better. Her kids seemed to be feeling better. She wasn't sure. But the interesting thing that she told me when I was there visiting her was that her little child, the one that was just a few months old, they had scheduled that baby for surgery, sinus surgery. And she said, we've decided to kind of put it off because things seem to be going better. We'll see how this goes. Well, interesting story to kind of shorten everything up. About a year and a half later, maybe 2 years later, I got a call from her and she said, I got to tell you an interesting story. She said, first of all, I got a phone call from my pediatric physician, the allergist. He was concerned that we had switched doctors because I haven't taken my kids to the allergist in almost a year. We decided not to do surgery for the baby, and the baby is doing great. Now, a couple of years old, doesn't seem to have any allergies to the environment and what's going on. She said, I think you really solved a bigger problem than you maybe think you solved. The reason I'm telling you that story is because we hear that story over and over and over and over again. Maybe not quite as dramatic, but we hear that story over and over and over again. You are in a very, very important industry. You may not realize it, but one of the reasons why it's regulated is because you're dealing with people's health. The health of your employees, the health of your clients. That's what you're dealing with. And rather than thinking about just being a mold assessor or just being a mold remediator, as Mo's probably told you, we want you to think in terms of being an indoor air quality professional, because that's really what you're doing. I'm sure Mo told you already that when you start cleaning up mold problems in an environment, it's almost like a surrogate of other things that are going on in the environment. If you're reducing the mold, you're also reducing some of the other contaminants, the bacteria, the viruses, the particulates, some of the other stuff that's going on in the environment. So you can make a gigantic change to the environment. So our goal is for you to really think in terms of becoming an indoor air quality professional. And this is really the first step. If you haven't thought about that before, this is really the first step in that direction. And I'll tell you the other thing it'll do for you. I've been in business a very long time. I used to tell people I was unemployed in the construction industry. Been in business a really long time. And what you want is you want an edge in the market that makes you different from everybody else. And it's not about price, let me tell you.
The Perfect Fit Filter by Best Living Systems, another innovative product by Best Living Systems that will change the way you breathe indoors. Older style filters use cardboard frames which become quickly filled up with mold and dead skin cells, causing them to flex inward and allow air to go right past the filter. With the Perfect Fit Filter, there is no blow-by. Because there is no cardboard for the mold to eat, this Perfect Fit Filter is designed with a sturdy internal frame and sized to fit virtually any size opening. It allows the edges of the filter media to enclose the frame of your return air grills, so every cubic inch of air is filtered. No reason to go searching for your specific size in your local big box store. The Perfect Fit Filter is shipped directly to you when you need them. In a home or office environment, this incredible 1-inch filter provides MERV 7 protection to serve as a 90-day filter. How can you leave this filter in for 90 days? Popular pleated filters provide tiny crevices where mold and bacteria get trapped. Because you are bringing to their nests dead skin cells and other organic materials, the microbes find a safe harbor, an environment where they can grow and reproduce. This is called bionesting, and the Perfect Fit Filter reduces the possibility of these microbes contaminating the air we breathe. Because the Perfect Fit Filter is rated with a MERV 7, the industry standard for 1-inch filters, it does not restrict airflow or put unnecessary strain on your air handler. The Perfect Fit Filter, now available by monthly subscription and free shipping at perfectfitfilter.com. The Perfect Fit for people who like to breathe.
August 2005. It'll be a memory etched into the minds of those of us who lived through and survived Hurricane Katrina and Rita. As devastating as the 150 miles per hour winds were, no one could imagine the inconceivable costs in terms of loss of human life and property that the failure of the levees caused when it flooded nearly 1/3 of the city of New Orleans. With over 275,000 homes lost on the Gulf Coast as a result of the hurricane, 10 times as many as any other natural disaster in U.S. history, the city of New Orleans continues to deal with the results of homes flooded to the rooftop, unparalleled mold infestation, and potential health issues for the residents who remained to salvage what they could. Information and misinformation has been mixed together, and vulnerable property owners have been faced with the daunting task of trying to sort out the truth. And so the lessons are clear. Prepare when you can for whatever flooding might occur, not only for the potential, but for the aftermath. And whether a natural disaster or the result of someone's mistake, anyone and everyone can suffer the devastating effects of flooding. My name's Doug Hoffman, and I'm the Executive Director of NORMI, the National Organization of Remediators and Mold Inspectors. The information you're about to hear is designed to provide steps, guidance, and assistance for reacting to flood conditions in your structure. In most situations, a common reaction to a water flood event is to simply react and plan afterwards. Tunnel vision or over-focusing on the emergency can, at times, distract or omit safety concerns, and poor planning can leave you to fend for yourself after the storm is over. Caution and common sense should always be employed before any action takes place, and I hope this presentation will help you focus on the real issues both before the potential flood and consider the solutions available to you in the aftermath. Without a plan, the results of a water flood event will be worse than you've imagined, so there are several things I'm going to ask you to consider during these first few minutes we have together. The integrity of the structural systems may have been compromised depending on the nature and degree of the event. In all cases, if you are unsure of how to proceed or to create a safe environment to work in, contact a professional to assist you. A major concern in flooding situations are the utility services. Wet or submerged electrical devices, outlets, and wires can energize the area you're working in. The risk of electrical shock, burns, or even death must be eliminated before proceeding. This may require the power company to deactivate your service. And of course, natural gas and propane sources should also be protected, secured, or deactivated. This would include pilot lights, heat sources, and gas storage tanks. Depending on the severity of the water event, structural integrity should be considered in regards to the foundations. Foundation support could be weakened or damaged, allowing structural collapse. And with the utility and structural concerns addressed, the next major concern is the source of the water. Common sources of a water loss are as follows: a broken or leaking pipe from a drinkable water source, sewage or septic lines, groundwater, or a combination of those sources. And of course, you have to be concerned about the sewage and septic lines when you consider some of not only the sources, but the problems that could result after a flood. A general rule of thumb would be to consider any water that you would not drink as being contaminated. This would include water coming in contact with chemicals, human and animal waste, debris, and other unknowns. Protecting yourself is one of the important first steps post some water event. Exposing your skin, your eyes, your lungs, your nose, even your throat to contaminated water can create a wide range of health issues that may not appear for days after the exposure. I want to talk about personal protection equipment because that should be used while you're in the contaminated environment. Personal protection equipment can include a wide range of items, including boots, clothing, gloves, goggles, and even a mask. We recommend, under normal conditions, a N95 or dust mask that you can find pretty much anywhere. In some situations, the contamination levels are so high that you might even require a respirator. But each situation would require different types or combination of these types of protection. With safety and health concerns addressed, corrective action can then be taken. One of the most important things to consider with respect to corrective action is time. Time is your enemy. Once materials get wet or contaminated, damage and additional contamination growth is exponential. A clean water loss, if not corrected, can promote mold growth in as little as 24 to 48 hours. And contaminations due to sewage or unknown water sources will simply exacerbate the problem. Drying materials and surfaces in the least amount of time should be of the utmost urgency, and oftentimes power is not available, and so having a generator available will be a great source of power for some of the tools that you'll need to dry out the areas that have been flooded. Unfortunately, this may require removal and discarding of flooring materials, wallboard, and furniture. Many material and items can be salvaged depending on the contamination source, the time of exposure, the cost, treatment available, and resources. But a flood affecting a widespread area could reduce the available resources for that area. Not only do you not have electrical service, but you may not have access to floor fans or heaters or dehumidifiers or even an ozone machine that might help eliminate some of the potential contamination that you'll be dealing with after a flood. The following suggestions may not be appropriate in all situations. However, in all situations, safety must be the primary concern. Prior to or during a developing flood condition, remove any movable items, at least as many as you can, to higher ground and secure those locations if possible. Of course, the order in which those items should be removed is a personal decision, but things to consider are the cost of that item, the sentimental value, proximity to the flood, maybe the ability for it to be moved and the practicality of it. Removing items such as furniture and floor coverings prior to getting saturated will make the cleanup process, of course, much easier. Structural and decorative materials such as wallboard and carpeting are a major problem once they get wet. Most of these materials absorb moisture and can expand the damage beyond the water level. Wallboard and other materials such as pressboard or OSB-oriented strand board allow water to travel in an upward direction well above the water line. An example would be wallboard in as little as 1 inch of water can wick or draw moisture upward several feet. This also creates a problem inside the wall cavity which cannot be reached or cleaned. The rule of thumb is to remove the wallboard a foot to a foot and a half above the highest identified wet area of the wall. This will allow access for drying and cleaning building materials in the wall cavities. Up to this point, we've described different conditions, causes, and precautions. In the next section, we want to describe pre-planning and corrective measures. The preparation checklist. As mentioned earlier, safety is the most important issue to consider. You know, taking the important stuff with you is, of course, a great way to prepare for what may be coming. But what can you do to plan for the aftermath of the flooding? That must be considered too. Electrical and gas services must be secured before entering a flooded area. You know, as a side note, an improperly connected generator at a neighbor's home could energize service at your home even if the utility company has cut power in the area. This type of situation could cause an unknown and unexpected risk. With the utilities secured, standing and running water should also be avoided. The health effects from unknown contaminants against your skin is a concern, in addition to the power of moving water. Did you know that just 6 inches of rushing water is capable of moving a parked vehicle? Losing your footing or being struck by debris, these are risks you need to consider. Assuming that the water is receding or the water source leak has been stopped, the next phase of the process can be started. Drying is one of the most important things you can do to reduce your loss. Contacting a remediation or drying company should be your first option. Pre-planning and contacting a restoration company before an imminent flood may place you on a response list if a wide area has been affected. Other options could include contacting the local fire department to have your basement or lower levels pumped out, renting pump equipment and generators prior to the flood while they're still available, and arranging for alternate lodging in the event your building becomes uninhabitable. Remember, the larger the area that's affected by the flood, the less resources will be available to you or your contractor. Here are a few internet resources for finding qualified contractors and some definitions we think you should know to protect yourself. NormiePro.com is a great resource for you to find certified mold assessors, inspectors, remediators, and other indoor air quality specialists, and you can find those certified contractors by your zip code. ServiceMagic.com is another great resource for construction contractors throughout the United States, and you can find them by the type of work they do and by your zip code. And then, of course, EnvironmentalExpert.com. To avoid being taken advantage of by a contractor during a flood emergency, understanding the following construction terms will be helpful. Licensed. In many parts of the country, having a license to do certain types of work is not necessarily a measure of that contractor's competency. Sometimes it simply means that they have government approval to work for a fee. Certified. Certification is often offered by certifying agencies, a specific organization that recognizes the skills, training, and the ability of the contractor who is certified. Being certified does not necessarily imply that the person certified is actually licensed to do the work. Insured. A contractor stating that they are insured is a pretty general term and could simply mean that they have auto insurance. Special types of insurance are required for specific types of work. For example, general liability insurance is not appropriate as coverage for mold remediation work. Qualified. A qualified contractor has been trained to perform certain types of work. However, they may not have the required insurances or licenses, or may not even be certified to do that work. The bottom line is that you need to understand the type of work that needs to be done, the capabilities of the contractor that you intend to hire, and then for your protection, have a written quote and description of the work to be performed. Make sure that the contractor that does the work is licensed by the municipality in which he's working, that he has the proper type of insurance, and request a certificate of insurance evidencing that specific type of insurance for the work he intends to do, and make sure that he's trained, either qualified or certified, to do the work for which you're hiring him. Keep in mind, using a contractor that's not appropriate for the work being performed may preclude you from any insurance claim, and you may give up your legal protection. If you cannot obtain a contractor, your only option may be to do the work yourself. With the decision to do the work on your own, we must stress that safety must be the main focus of your efforts to clean up after a flood. So let's talk about doing it yourself. While working in a safe environment, using the proper protective tools and equipment, water removal becomes the main priority. Pumps for pooling water and wet-dry vacs provide a good start to remove the majority of water. Rugs and carpeting and padding, if saturated or contaminated by an unknown water source, should be removed to allow drying of the subflooring. Sheetrock or wallboard materials and insulation that have been submerged should be removed 12 to 18 inches above the highest wet area. As a hint, removing 4 feet of wallboard is easier to replace with a 4 foot by 8 foot sheet of material. It's easier to do that than to try to cut and fit in smaller pieces. Once the bulk of wet materials have been removed, air movement and turning on your air conditioner if the power is available should be provided. And this would include running the HVAC, heat or forced air systems, using dehumidifiers and fans to increase air movement, and applying sanitizers like ozone machines to help prevent mold and bacteria growth. Sanitizers are extremely important when dealing with sewage and water from unknown sources. Heat drying systems can also be used by trained professionals to dry the environment. However, improper use could result in fire or permanent damage to materials by drying them too quickly. Remember that the drying process may take several days to more than a week, depending on the extent of the exposure. Secondary or collateral damage may start to occur in that time. Mold and other microbial growth may start to appear on surfaces exposed to moisture or elevated humidity levels. And if you have a situation where you start to have large areas of microbial growth, the drying process in most cases was not done adequately or fast enough. There is available at enviroscreening.com, for instance, do-it-yourself testing kits to find out if the mold that's been growing in your environment is the type of mold that might need to be removed or dealt with differently than common molds. In this case, it's recommended that you seek the assistance of a professional mold inspector, a qualified sampling technician, or a remediator. Health concerns become additionally critical as the environment conditions deteriorate. In regards to mold licensing laws, there are currently only 4 states that have mold licensing laws in place. Texas and Louisiana, of course, have their mold licensing laws in place. Florida has their licensing law in place, but it doesn't go into effect until 2010. And then just this year, the state of Maryland put in place their mold licensing law. The important thing is that you check the qualification of the indoor air quality specialist or the mold inspector or the mold remediator or assessor in your state to make sure that they are licensed, certified, and insured before they begin any work. Let's talk about some common misconceptions and myths pertaining to flood and mold and indoor air quality. Oh, bleach kills mold. How many times have you heard that? Well, bleach is an effective sanitizer, but in many cases it will not sanitize or remove mold at its root. It will bleach out the color, of course, so that it goes clear, giving the appearance that the problem's been removed, but it cannot, in many cases, get down into the microflora and destroy the mold at its root. Oh, just get rid of the water. Everything will be fine. Well, that's not always enough to protect your property. Most of the affected materials do have the ability to retain moisture, and elevated moisture levels are the main cause of much of the residual damage from flooding. Well, lots of air fresheners, that'll help. Well, that's not true. In actuality, most air fresheners only attempt to mask the odors. The odors are an indication that moisture, contamination, or growth still exist. And the chemicals in those fresheners can also be a source of indoor air quality contamination. Well, your insurance company is going to take care of the problem. Don't worry about it. Well, of course, insurance companies are not always quick to respond because of the heavy workloads, the emergency claims that bog things down and delay payments. Many homeowner insurance policies have exclusions that limit or exempt the insurance company from paying a claim. An example would be a claim to an insurance company for water damage from, say, groundwater intrusion. In most cases, the claim could not be covered unless you had flood insurance and the area that you're in was declared a disaster area by some government agency. A similar situation may occur with mold damage, and the water damage in the home may be covered by the insurance company, but the mold damage as the result of the water would not be covered. Here are several resources that may provide you with some additional assistance. Of course, the FEMA and the EPA government websites are good resources for more information about how to contact those agencies in an emergency. And also at the normie.org website, we've located a lot of resources for you, articles in regards to antimicrobials, information about mold screening kits, and other things that we feel will be helpful to you. We highly recommend that you seek professional assistance when dealing with a flood, mold, or indoor air quality issue. And please remember that the information that we have been providing to you is really for your information and not intended to replace professional training and assistance. I want to personally thank you for taking the time to listen to this overview. I am hoping that you will benefit from the resources we've made available to you, but also from the training that we offer industry professionals to help you through the process of getting things back to normal. It's my hope that you will never be faced with the issues we've discussed, but if you are, you will now be better prepared. Thank you.
Hey there, my name's Doug Hoffman. I'm the Executive Director of NORMI, National Organization of Remediators and Mold Inspectors, and I'm so excited to be able to share with you information about our new certification, the Certified Remediator for Sensitized Individual. And this class is actually led by one of our new senior trainers, Michael Pinto, who's been in the sensitized individual field for many, many years. And I'm just going to turn it over to him and let him talk to you a little bit about why this class is so important for anybody that's in the industry. So, Michael, it's all yours.
Thank you, Doug. I appreciate that very much. Just want everybody to know that the reality is that you're dealing with sensitized individuals, whether you know it or not. Anybody who's in the mold assessing and or remediation field, some of the people that you're coming across indicate that they've been made sick by mold, or they, as you do your occupant interviews to understand what's going on in the home, you may find out that they're talking about symptoms. Now, we are not doctors, but what we are professionals that are trying to help resolve some of these issues. So what this particular class does is three things very specifically. It helps turn you into a better remediator. There's absolutely no doubt about that. You can be a good remediator, you can be an average remediator, but this will help you be a better remediator, and that's just good across the board. The real issue, though, is that for sensitized individuals, it's a necessity. You can't miss the details. The second thing that the class does is expand upon some of the things that just get missed in a general sense in regards to following the IICRC S520, the mold standard. Most people know about conditions 1, 2, and 3, normal fungal ecology, and visible fungal growth as condition 3. What gets missed is that whole condition 2, deposition of airborne spores.